Would you like to know what the Akashic records are? Would you like to know what your Akashic records are? Can you read them? Is this something somebody else has to do? What are they and can you access them? Can anybody access them? Yes. Now, if you saw my interview with Wendy Cicchetti, my astrologist and dear friend, you saw all of the amazing information she gave about the next 4 years and beyond, predictions according to how the planets and stars and everything are aligned and how we can use those. So don't miss that video. I'm going to post that at the end of this one. But I wanted to ask Wendy about the Akashic records. What are they? How do we access them? And is this something that we can learn? Yes. So get ready for an exciting interview with Wendy Cicchetti, and I'll have another one and I'll share my reading with you. But let's learn about how you can use them and how you can actually learn how to read them yourself. Ready? Let's go. We are live. Welcome to Landria Onkka on YouTube. Here to help you break through those fears, live an amazing life. We're going to raise the frequency of the planet one light being at a time. And we're going to get straight into it with Wendy Cicchetti. And you know what? I'm going to make sure I pronounce this right, because last time got people ready for this interview and somebody said it's not Akashic, it's Akashic Records.
Yes, Akashic.
Okay, all right. Yeah, you say tomato, I say tomato. Right. So we're going to get straight into it. And as you guys know, if you saw the other interview, I'm going to post it as an option for you to watch at the end of this video. Go back and watch that video that I mentioned just briefly about astrology and all of the amazing things that we are looking at in the next 4 years and beyond, which Wendy shared. That was a very popular video, Wendy. People loved it and they wanted you to come back. So I'm excited to do this. And now here's what I want to start out with right away, because you would think that I would know about these things. This is probably the one area that I have the least knowledge of when it comes to spirituality and all these great things. So can you just start out by explaining what are the Akashic records? What are they? And then what are their roots? And then we're going to go into your training and how you got trained on it. So let's start with what they are, where they came from.
Well, first of all, as a soul, or when a soul is born, it's our understanding that the records for that individual begin, okay, at the birth of the soul. And it's a record of their past, the present, and future possibilities through the entire duration of the life of that soul. So we're talking about a lot of data here.
Yeah.
And, you know, the Bible calls it the book of life. Other cultures call it different things. Now, for eons of time, when the frequency and the people were maybe a little bit higher frequency, they could access them, like the Mayans were able to access them. And but as the planet became more and more dense and lower frequency through the dark ages and all of that stuff, the frequency of the planet became too low to be able to access them. Now, they're very high frequency, and when you're in that realm, the frequency is like off the charts.
Yeah.
And but I'm trying to think of his name. Oh, come on, the guy who can't think of his name. Anyway, he could access the records only in a trance state, because that was when Edgar Cayce.
I do know Edgar Cayce.
Yes. And he accessed the records and he talked about it, but he could only do it in a trance state. But since that time, as the frequency of the planet has lifted, the ability for us to be able to access these records, it has so greatly improved. Now, if you're a really deep, low density person, you're probably not going to be able to access them. But for those of you who are high density or high frequency, you should be able to access them pretty readily. Now, there's a man that brought this all back. Let me shut that off. There's a man that was, he had several dreams. This was back in the 60s. And a man woman would appear to him in this dream and summon him that she had something for him. And he was traveling in Mexico. The plane was late, and he ended up walking through the streets of Mexico. And here was this woman that had been in his dreams. And she said, "Come here, I have to share this with you." And she took him on this journey, and through that journey taught him to access the records, and that he was the one to be able to do that. His name was Johnny Porcheska, Czechoslovakian fellow. And so he came back to the United States. He was just so in awe of what he'd been given that he started to teach people how to access their records. Now, one of the women that he taught was named Mary Parker. And this kind of, talk about synchronicity. I wanted to do Mary Parker's chart. And so I asked my teacher, I said, when was her birthday? Because she had traveled with Mary all over the country teaching the records. And her birthday was the same day as mine.
Oh my gosh.
And she was heavy Taurus, like I am, birthday May 15th. And she had 7 children, like I did.
Oh my gosh.
She was also a Mormon, like I was.
Ah,
I mean, the synchronicity of it just blew my mind.
that
But
is
anyway,
now
she's-
wait a second before you continue, because I'm still back on what this is, because I want to hear about Mary, because I know that takes us into your teachings and your trainings. Before we go there, when you talk about records, what do you mean? Like, I've heard about there's a fabric or a library, or when you say records, and like, where are they? And I mean, I'm trying to place this.
Okay.
Records.
It's my understanding that there is a huge library. Now, where this library exists, I don't know,
Right.
but it's massive, and it contains the records, like the Book of Life, for every soul that has been created.
And now I've heard also that there's some kind of tapestry, and that every little, thread in there represents a person and their pathway.
Now, I haven't heard that. I don't know about that situation. I just know that the records are there for us to be able to access them. If our frequency is high, and if we go through the training. Now, Johnny was given the information, the prayers that are required to open the records. There are specific prayers. And this was what was really interesting for me, because when I left the Mormon church many, many years ago, I kind of threw prayer and all that stuff out the window, because I needed to start over, and get rid of all the old tapes and start replanting seeds that fit. And when I started to get involved in doing the records, I started to realize how important prayer is. And there are certain prayers that you have to recite in order to access the records. And there are prayers of protection that we use before we open the records, so that we don't bring in any other entities that we don't want present.
Okay, so let's take this now, because I want to learn about, you're talking about Mary Parker, and then how you got involved, and I want you to go through that now, because when I want to end up with how we access those and why would we, just like astrology, you talked about why and how we can use it. I want to get to that. So let's go into, so you do the reading for Mary Parker.
Well, what happened was, I was in California for 17 years, and after my second Saturn return, we were repotted here in New Mexico, and we moved into this little podunk town called Belen. And so for me to be able to run into the woman who traveled around the world with Mary Parker is like miraculous. And
Wow.
one day she said to me, and she said, because a group of us older women would get together at her work called The Porch, and all of us old ladies would go sit around, and she said, would you guys like to learn how to open the Akashic records?
Oh my God.
And I went, sure. It was like
That's a
the
question?
astrology thing. It was like the astrology thing. It was just given to me.
Wow.
And at that, then she set up a meeting for all of us. And at that meeting, we had partners. We learned how to open the records, and we opened them, and then we asked questions of each other. And I will tell you, I was absolutely stunned, because I spent 8.5 years of formal astrology training so I could speak intelligently about astrology and help people. And here in an evening, sitting next to this other beautiful woman, opening each other's records and being able to talk about it. And the information just came. It just came into my mind. And I said to her, as I was during her reading, this was my first one, it came into my mind that she should stop eating meat, be careful about eating meat, and that not to get too concerned. She was 85, she was, whether she's going to die and live longer or should she stay. And I said, don't worry about it. The words that come to my mind are, be still and know that I am God. And she started to cry.
Oh.
Because that had been such an important scripture in her life. And she said, oh my gosh, my stomach has been hurting so much. I know it's the meat. And I'm just stunned.
You couldn't have possibly known that, right? You couldn't have known that. Oh my gosh, that's...
And to be honest with you, I had never met the woman before.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I came home and I thought about it. And I thought, you know what? If I can learn to do this and teach other people to do it, then they can get their own answers. They don't need to ask anybody else.
Yes.
I can give them a system where if they listen and they trust themselves and they're getting access to the records through the prayers and they're raising their frequency, there's no reason not to get the answers.
Yes. And so I love this. Once again, learning how, and that's what I feel that this phase that we're going through to this next level of awakening is that we hold all the power. And now we're learning in so many ways to use it with all of these different, methods, depending on, everybody has their favorites and things that work for them. So when you talk about accessing them, so let's talk about why would I access them? Because a lot of things that I get, people are so like, as soon as I use the word prediction, they're like, they want to listen. And as we know, and we talked about Edgar Cayce and Nostradamus and how they said, and I just shot a video on this, that the future is interchangeable. And so the Akashic records, so that's the same thing exists there, right? This is an interchangeable future we can create and access.
Right, exactly. It's possibilities. Every choice we make, every action we take, then is written in the records, okay? And so when you go back and you look at your past lives, you can see an evolution of your soul as you go through it. And you start to understand what your purpose really is in this life that you're in right now. And I know that based on what I've asked about it, that one of my missions is to bring forth love into the world. That's one of my missions. And I went back, and it was so interesting as I was opening up the records today, because I wanted to have them open while I did this interview, which interestingly enough is a really awesome thing to do, because your brain works faster because it's higher frequency.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. And I open it up lots of times when I do readings, and when I write, I open up the records. There are several people who have written complete books by just being in that frequency, right, opening the records.
So it's really an opening. Again, it's really coming down to the probabilities, because probabilities do include the past. And I think people don't realize that they can actually change their past. And, especially about how we view it and think of it, and that every probability and every past also exists because there's no such thing as time. And so what would be like, okay, I think you just answered it for me, but so the purpose of, and we're going to talk about how this actually takes some training to learn this. You just don't, like astrology, you just don't pop into it and know everything. When you access the records, I mean, what would be the difference between just meditating or, you know, using manifesting to create your future? I mean, what's the added assistance you get from the records?
Well, there are beings that are the ones that are in control of the records. You can't always get everything you ask for because you will never get anything that would in any way interfere with your free will. And one of the things too is that children 18 and younger, we can't read them. We can't access their records because there's too much of a probability that free will might be interrupted. So you do the records, you open the records with the prayers and the prayers of protection, and then you're in that realm, and then you ask the questions, and then you pay attention to what comes into your head, and you listen with confidence, and it is amazing what comes. And yes, it is different than some of the other things you mentioned. It's a lot different. That frequency is very unique. Yeah. It's not, you know, you can trans-channel things in that frequency, but I prefer to keep it pure. I just want the Akashic information. I don't want to channel other entities. I just want that information.
You and me both.
I know.
Yeah, but we talked about that. It's like, so when you go to the Akashic records and we have higher frequency beings are overseeing that. Yeah. So that, you know, that's who you're dealing with, because no lower beings can possibly be in the realm of the records, correct?
Right. Yes, and it was really interesting when I first started doing the readings. A good friend of mine who was my accountant, I said, would you like a reading? And she said, oh yes, I would. And so I got all prepared and opened her records, and this is when I was doing them by phone, and I called her, and she was agitated about something. Oh my God, she was so upset that it totally blocked my flow of information. I said, honey, I can't read for you right now. You are too chaotic. It's blocking my ability to get information. So I said, I will answer all of your questions, but do it when I can control the frequency. And so this is how I do it now. I have my clients submit to me 4 or 5 questions about specific things that are concerning them. And then when I can control the frequency and I'm totally quiet and I've done everything to lift my frequency, I get into the records, and then I can get the answers unobstructed.
So now this is interesting because if my subscribers know this, one of the few people that I actually do watch videos on is Dolores Cannon, who's since passed away, and I'm bummed because there are no more videos on these, like this access that she had to the higher beings, not as a channeler. She got it through the hypnosis she did with her patients, who then spoke through them to her. And one thing she said, Wendy, this was, I thought, really interesting. They said that there are, like you just said, there are some things they will not reveal because it would interfere with the free choice that somebody might make. That's right. And so I want to share with you, and I think I told you in the email, it took me like a week to come up with my questions, because Wendy read my records. It was fun. I struggled for questions because I'm in the realm of knowing that I control my destiny, and I'm at peace with everything. And I realized that anything that I would ask and was told, I could change anyways. And that I always feel like I know what that future is that I desire, and I don't have those blocks and barriers between me and that. And so it was really tough. So a lot of things I asked were like, well, one was about my past, because I have very distinct memories of being on other planets and that were in more chaotic situations. And I thought it was really funny that there's a statue in my honor. And not surprised that I was, a male energy in some of those situations. But it was a lot of.
So interesting is I get names of planets I've never heard of.
Yes.
It
Yes.
just blows my mind. Oh, there's a planet named that, you know?
And I'm going to actually do a separate video for you guys to share what she told me. And I actually wanted to know, because this was the case with Eckhart Tolle, that everything's energy. Of course, there's energy fields. And this is where we get the directives, like from astrology and the Akashic records, is a little bit of assistance when we're making decisions that we know is right or not, and I asked, is there a specific place that I should be in that would be, best energetically? And, that was one of my questions, because I know Eckhart, whenever he moved back to the UK to write his book, he couldn't.
No.
It was impossible. So he would edit in the UK, and then he'd go back to Vancouver, and all the writing just came. And he said, as soon as he went back to the UK, for some reason, there was an energy block for him personally. So it's amazing how energy, how powerful all of this is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really feel like, it's not only just helps guide us, especially I think most people are looking for answers right now, but it's just a lot of fun. It was just a lot of fun.
It's fun, but it's also inspiring when you get information about what was going on. Like I knew I had lifetimes as a nun. And so I asked the records, tell me about my lifetimes as a nun. And I got this, huge long paragraph about what I did and how I had helped so many people, and that I got crippled, and that I had made accommodations for pain. I accommodated pain, and that I would go out and meet with people, and everyone that I met with was inspired and blessed. And it didn't matter what I looked like. It didn't matter how crippled I was. It was the intent of my heart that went out, that assisted other people. I appreciated hearing that.
Yeah. It's
stuff comes up that you would never have thought.
Yeah, sometimes it helps explain, like, okay, this might be why I'm inclined for certain things. Okay, like of course I have 101 questions going on here in my mind. But so when people go to access the records, so this is something that you can actually teach people, and that they can go in there. It is not in stone, but they can access to, like you said, get inspired, help give them direction, know that they're not alone. I think one of the biggest things I hear is like, people are like, I asked my angels for help. There's nobody out there. I'm like, yes, they are. And I think this might be a really powerful way to, to open the communications up, right?
And lots of people, when they try and access things, whether it's their angels or their Akashic records or whatever else, their guides, if the person's frequency is really low, they're going to feel like they're alone.
Mm-hmm.
But if they do every day what's necessary, and I loved your video on every thought you think, is it high frequency, is it low frequency? Yeah. And I actually put that in my celestial update today.
Oh, awesome.
And advertised you. And but that's a lot of the problems why we feel alone, is we get depressed, which is low frequency. We get in fear, low frequency. I mean, all of those, anger and all of that stuff just keeps us low and prevents us from getting the clear communication.
Yes.
Okay. But if every day you work on every thought and every activity and keep it high frequency, you're not going to feel alone. You're going to feel those helpers by you and with you, and you will get information. But it's all a matter of controlling your frequency. Mm-hmm.
So I think, it's funny because the law of attraction term was like one of the biggest searches on the internet, and it has somehow died out. And I think that's a great indication that people are not looking just to manifest, they're looking to go to that higher frequency place. it's now, this is August. I have my workshop. I did a master class called Shift into the New Earth. And it's like, okay, how do we control all this? But how do we do it on that high frequency? Because like you're saying, we can manifest all kinds of things, you know, I mean, on any level, lower
Right.
levels, you can create wars
Right.
that way. But we're realizing this, we're going into that new earth. And my workshop's coming out where I'm showing people, this is about that frequency. And you, like you said, can't access those spaces because you're not resonating. It's like tuning into
Right.
a radio station and you're listening to rock and roll and it's classic, and you're not going to get it on that frequency. And I think this is so important for people to learn that when you get trained, and Wendy's going to explain that she's got a class coming up, is that it's not just about, oh, how do I go and open the records? It's like, I have to be that higher frequency person. And that starts here. And that's an everyday practice, right?
Now, you know, the scriptures say that we are to be in the world, but not of the world. And that to me is really explains it. You know,
Absolutely.
we're in this density, but we live here, but we're not part of it.
No.
We've risen above that density,
Yeah.
and we are connected to these higher realms if we'll just be willing to do what's necessary to stay there. And it's a willingness. It's not a
Yes.
forced thing.
It's a choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing is, like you were saying, is that, you know, you're opening up to that high frequency, and it's like, we've never lost that. We're the ones that are putting all of the blocks and the boulders and the stuff in between us and that. We're always that. I tell people, awakening is not something you have to achieve. It's what you are. It's all the other things you think, like you said, in this false realities that we create to experience it, to know contrast. Like, oh, now I know what it's like to be blissful because I've been the other place, you know? And then, so to now go into that space is like so empowering. So what are some of the things that we can do by accessing them? Like, what would be, besides just getting some answers, like what are some of the other things that might be helpful for us?
Well, I know in some of the readings I've done for people, they've asked me questions, particularly about relationships. Who is this person? Was I with this person before? Is he the right person for me to be with, kind of a thing? What goes on with, did I have children in past lives? What happened to them? You know, in some lives that I'm able to access, people are royalty. And it's very interesting as we deal with things like karma. Were they kind, loving, wonderful people, or were they controlling people and creating all kinds of mayhem, and then they bring that mayhem karma into the next life and the next life? So it's very, very intriguing to access those other lives, to answer their questions. And many times I'm finding that the questions that they've answered or that get answered relieve them, because they've had thoughts about it, even dreams about it, but they have no way to validate it.
Right.
And this helps validate those things.
You know, it's funny. I think that's why it's so powerful to go into these classes or be with somebody else who's actually doing this. You don't feel like you're crazy. A lot of people, like, if they write me, are like, I know that you won't think I'm crazy. And I said, of course I won't. Tell me what you have, because we do ignore all of that. We do ignore that access and those answers and these things we get. And I think with, you know, getting the training is putting it all together and understanding what to do with that. But I think the thing too is, you know, we look at these relationships as what you did to me in this lifetime, and it's so much bigger than that. It's like, wait a minute, you right? It's just huge. It's like, no, they're not doing
that
something.
was like a blip.
Yes. Yes. And so all these, you know, to access that and understand the relationships and the learnings and the things that you traded off and on throughout these different adventures is really a powerful, amazing thing. It's like, thank you for being my teacher this time, because maybe I was the, you know,
Right.
the nasty person in the last one.
And, you know, there is that concept of soul groups, and that we reincarnate as groups. I may be the child one life, you may be the father or the mother, you may be my friend, you might be the ruler in that area at that time, you know, all of those things. We've all been everything.
That's, I love it. And I love these conversations because it expands people out beyond this, my problems, the woe of the world. Wendy and I both see this, and that's why I love speaking with her, is that we see the opportunity of great transformation right now, and that there is nothing wrong with what's going on, because like, as Einstein said, God doesn't play dice. He doesn't roll the dice. There are no mistakes. Somebody said, it was never supposed to be like this. I said, yes, it is, because we were given free will, which means we chose that it would be like this. We chose to go into the density. And
all of our lives are just school.
Yeah.
All of our lives, we're just learning. We're playing with consciousness.
Yes.
We're playing with ideas and choices. And then if, say, we're in one life and we kill a bunch of people and, you know, gloat over it, okay, you learned that that isn't a good idea. And so now you got karma associated with that in your next lives.
Not a good idea. Yeah, especially when you're...
Somebody's going to come and deal that with you. But everything that we do in this life and in the past lives is based on our schooling. Everything we do, we're learning lessons. Every relationship, we learn about ourselves.
Yes.
You know?
And you know, it's really fun because, you know, I always tell people science is based on what they know. And if they can't prove it, they say it doesn't exist. And I said, everything exists. And so nothing is faster than the speed of light, which is wrong. NASA has clocked galaxies moving away from us faster than the speed of light away from us. What does that mean? We are in constant expansion and evolving and creating and learning. And that's what learning is. So when I say student, every once in a while I get somebody who's, oh, this isn't school. I said, okay, call it what you want. It's expansion. So we're here expanding and experiencing everything that we can be.
And you know, that speed of light idea is actually not terribly correct when it comes to our intentions or our thinking or blessing someone. We can instantaneously access another person on this planet with love, with peace, instantaneously.
There's no travel time.
There's
it just
no
happens.
time in between. Yeah,
I love it. So I want to just, in fact, I'm going to like let Wendy tell about, like, first of all, you guys know, as subscribers, you get a discount if you mention my name. She's going to give you a really nice discount on getting your Akashic records read. You can have 4 or 5 questions in advance. She goes into a state where she accesses them, where she goes into the higher, there's no interruptions, and then she'll come back with her answers for you. But she also has a class she's going to tell you about. And again, mention my name, because I think the learning all of this is the next step. Is we're not going to astrologists and psychics for the answers. We're learning how to empower ourselves. Yeah. So tell us what's going on, how they can get a hold of you. Well, I'll post all of this. So at the end of this, it's going to be showing right now, but at the end of this video, you guys wanted the info. I'm going to have a blank screen with her information. It's going to be down in the description. I'm going to make sure it's in there for sure. You can't miss it. But right now, tell us, what it is you're going to do, offer, and when is this class?
Okay. My next class is on September 20th. It's a Sunday, and it's at 1 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And what we do in that class is you learn within that 2-hour period how to access your records. We practice with each other, and you learn everything that you need. And then there are 2 other classes that are after that. And also once you register for the first class, you have access to all the other first level classes that I teach if you want to take it again. So I'm always here helping you, reinforcing, because it is a new skill.
It is.
Okay. And you have to learn and be confident with yourself and learn how to ask questions and get the answers that you're desiring. And then once that's done and you feel confidence in that, Then there's level 2, which teaches you how to do it for others, like
Oh,
me accessing Landria's records or anyone else. It teaches you how to do that. So there are 2 levels associated with it, and I work pretty much keeping you at that high frequency. We also work with a book that is very high frequency. It's the same frequency as the records, and it's so powerful. I want to just show this to you. It's called Your Holiness by Debbie Ford.
Debbie Ford.
This is the book that was found 5 years after her death.
Yeah.
And she and James Van Praagh had, or not she, but Ariel Ford, her sister and some of her other friends had a session with James Van Praagh. And during the entire time, Debbie tried to get through and said, Ariel, you got to do this book on prayer for me. And she's going, oh, no way. And finally, by the end, she had so interrupted James every time that a phone number came through, the name of a lady came through. And so Ariel agreed that she would do it. And then she called that woman and she said, oh yeah, there's a manuscript already done and here it is.
Oh my gosh.
And this book is so high frequency and it helps you get in touch with your own holiness.
Yeah.
And I work with that. And I think that's the real thing. In my astrology practice, so many people think something's wrong with them.
Yeah, I know.
And no, it's just their particular lessons. There's nothing wrong with them. Each of us is, like you say, a spark of the divine. We're all holy. We just need to come into an awareness of that holiness.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, this is fun. I thank you so much. I'm going to put this information so you guys don't click and end this because I'm going to put it there so you can look at it. It's Wendy Twixt Earth and Sky, correct?
Right, Wendy at twixtearthandsky.com.
That's her email. You'll see it showing up here. Email her directly, and then she'll look at your or what?
Or go to my website, twixtearthandsky.com, and click on the link that I have there that says Akashic Records. And all the information you need to register is right there.
Okay, but I want to make sure they get their discount.
Yeah, oh yeah, and it even gives it the discount. Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool.
Tells you what the coupon code is, which is Akashic.
Okay, good, good. All right, so we're going to keep having sessions like this every once in a while. We'll bring Wendy on and start talking about. So any subjects you guys in particular want us to dig deeper into, please let me know and let's have fun with it. Wendy's going to be on my channel. She'll be able to respond to some of your comments. I noticed that you were able to say a few things to people who loved you. And so feel free to talk to my subscribers and talk, and give your information to them directly off of my channel.
Okay.
So I'm just going to say, hey guys, you know what? It's time to claim your power, know what you are, and everything else is just a story. Go see Wendy, empower yourself, and start to raise that frequency. I'm going to announce when my workshop is out. It's going to be out shortly. We're going to work on raising that frequency every single day. This is what we're here for. Critical 4 years here for us to do that. Wendy, thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome.
I love
Thank
you. I love you. And yeah, we're going to do this again. And guys, give us your comments. Tell us what you think. And all your questions, I'm sure if we have a lot, we'll come back on here and answer them on the next video. So take care.
Bye, everybody. Love you all.
Love y'all. Bye-bye.